Hello and welcome to another installment of At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a platform where we will learn from people who come from different walks of life, careers, and experiences, but all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of saying yes to the unexpected turns of their lives, and they're now using the power of their voice or podium to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium is the intersection of art, culture, and big thoughts wrapped up in good old-fashioned conversation. Today, I'm thrilled and humbled to share the podium with Toby Poser. Toby is a recognized actress, voiceover artist, filmmaker, and writer. After graduating from Tulane University in New Orleans, she moved to New York and began acting in stage productions regionally and off-Broadway, including Mike Leigh's Obie-winning Ecstasy by the New Group. For 3 years, she filled the role of Guiding Light's wicked Malibu Madam Amanda Spaulding, all the while acting in other TV classics like All of the Law and Orders and independent films like Sundance Darlings, The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love, and Steal Me. Her voice has been heard on numerous national campaigns, including AT&T Wireless and the iconic Flow commercials for Progressive Auto Insurance. Toby has been co-writer, director, producer, camera operator, and actor on all of Wonderworld Productions' award-winning films, including Rumble Strips, Knucklejack, The Shoot, Halfway to Zen, The Deeper You Dig, and the soon-to-be-released Hellbender. She lives in the Catskill Mountains of New York with her creative partners, her husband, John Adams, and their 2 daughters, Lulu and Zelda. Check out wonderworldproductions.com for more information on their movies. So Toby, welcome to At the Podium.
Thank you, my beautiful friend Patrick. I'm so happy to be here.
I have been wanting to talk to you. You're actually our 10th conversation. So it's like that special number. So I've been wanting to talk to you. So I'm so happy you're here today. I really am.
Oh, the feeling is very mutual. I mean, if my smile could break my computer, it probably would.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's just get right into it. I want to start from the beginning. How did we get here? And did you always want to be an actress? And what created that love of creating within you, and who lit that artistic flame for you?
Wow. I remember when I was in 5th grade, I went to this little girls' school in Baltimore, Maryland, and we were doing the Velveteen Rabbit, and I got to play the Nana, who was kind of the villain of the play. She was a little wicked and she was mean, and I had a couple songs to screech out, and I had this big pillow in me for a bust, and I can remember sitting in the wings just mouthing everyone's words. I couldn't contain the love I had for that feeling of being under the lights and performing for people and sharing the experience with the other kids around me. And I don't think it ever went away. I think for a while I was intimidated by the idea of being an actor, of being an actress. And then when I hit 10th grade, I finally got up the gumption to audition at another school. And I didn't make it, but here's the funny thing. When I ran into the director in the hall, he said, "Why did you miss rehearsal?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, didn't you see your name on the cast list?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Toby Foster." And I said, "That's not my name." He said, "Well, then you should have better handwriting." And he was my first mentor. And it just, from then on, I was stuck. And fast forward to majoring in theater in college, and then meeting you at Oklahoma Shakespeare Festival in 1991. And I moved to the city. And it's
aging us. You're aging us, Toby. You just aged.
No, it's beautiful. It's a great thing, right? And it's something I've always loved.
I remember we did that summer together in Oklahoma. We actually met in, was it Raleigh, North Carolina, or Winston-Salem, North Carolina?
Yeah,
when we were in Raleigh, North Carolina. I remember you were sitting on this sort of like round circular like seat, like those, I don't know if there's a proper name for those types of sofas. I don't know what they're called. But you were sitting there in a beautiful wine red colored like leotard top, and your hair was dyed like electric blonde. The girls were doing that back in the day because of Madonna. I remember I walked in to this huge hall. We were at a theater audition conference, basically. And I remember it felt like one of those moments in the movies when all the lights just turned and there was like Toby Poser sitting there. And I was just drawn to you in that moment. And I feel like we've had 30 plus years of me just being drawn to the energy that is Toby Poser and all those years.
We clicked. I remember it perfectly. You too, your expression. And yeah, what a beautiful thing to reconnect by chance in Oklahoma, of all places.
Of all places. And you know, what's interesting about you, and I know, you know, we'll talk about the guiding light later. But what's interesting about you is that you're a very soulful, introspective, almost shy person. And yet you exude such magnetism when you're working on the stage or in front of the camera. What is that? Where's that space within you that allows that kind of, you know, letting the bear out, so to speak?
Well, thank you, first of all. I think that everyone is prismatic. I think we all carry a lot of qualities and colors. It's just fun to look at life through different glasses. And fun is a big word here. I don't mean it flippantly. It is fun to be an actor. It is fun to play other people. It's fun, if you're not an actor, to tell a joke. It's fun to hear a joke. It's fun to tell stories. Stories make up the world. We got here because of stories we've heard and the stories we're making. So I'd have to say that fun is just a really big part of it. I remember my first acting teacher in college, the first day of class, he said, "Why do you all want to be here?" And everyone was trying to come up with these very intellectual questions about, you know, well, I want to tell, I have a political statement I want to say through my work and through the work of playwrights, and everyone would say this and that. And then finally he said, "Aren't you here because it's fun? Isn't it? Are you having a good time? Doesn't everyone want to, you know, come into acting class and just break loose and have fun?" And I thought, you know what? I've never forgotten that. And yeah, it is fun. And you can make a career off of entertaining, whether you're absorbing someone else's entertainment, which is a beautiful gift, or whether you're the person who's actually entertaining. Someone's got to fill those shoes. And I'm so grateful I've been able to.
How, you know, on this show, we've talked to a lot of people who started off as actors and have transitioned into other careers or other parts of the business. How have you had that staying power over these many years to just sort of keep that as your guiding light, as your mission? How have you been able to do that?
Well, at times I struggled. When I lived in New York, the first few years I waited a lot of tables. I collected a lot of tips. But there was something even back then about the pure joy of doing something I loved that made it sustainable. In fact, some of my favorite things were done for nothing. I wasn't compensated, and they were experiences that are just burned inside my heart forever. Later, when I hit about 40 and I had moved to Los Angeles to try my hand there at the acting world in California, and my career had really waned. I started making films. So that was another way to sustain myself as an actor. I thought, you know, this is a platform for me to be that person who writes those roles that I want to see. And I get to act in them. I can cast myself, and all the other stuff fell into place. But the original impetus was to sustain my acting career. And to do that, I found my voice, so to speak, as a director and writer.
Is that how Wonderworld Productions was born?
Essentially, it started as something I created for my voiceover career. But I always knew that it could turn into something like a production company for plays or theater. It was a corporation, so I thought I can do whatever I want with this. And it started in 2004, but used it film-wise for the first time in 2010.
And So if you guys haven't seen these movies, they're visually stunning. They're superbly performed. They really feature your husband John, your daughters Zelda and Lulu, and it's really interesting to watch the body of work that you've created, because it's almost watching a theatrical repertory company, because the four of you embody these different characters and these different circumstances, and it's so satisfying to me as an audience member to watch you all almost shape shift into these different characters. And I feel like it's interesting because it's almost like we're entering this very interior world of the Addams family, of the four of you. And obviously, you know, none of you are murderers or ghosts or things like that. But are you cognizant of that when you're creating the work? Was that an intentional focus of what you were doing, or was that one of sort of like the unintended benefits of you guys working together?
I'd say the comfort we have on screen is an ambient result of our just having eaten lunch together 20 minutes earlier, let's say, and it's a convenience as well. But no, we don't set out to be our characters. It's more like there's something we want to say. Usually, we want to say something about families or the universal struggles of life, or as an adolescent or as a parent in general. That's what we're going for. But we do always want to refract those familiarities through a different glass. Otherwise, it's not really fun. I mean, I'm not from our first film, Rumble Strips, I'm not someone from Northern California who's grown marijuana and is going to prison for it. Fortunately, I don't have a daughter who's been abducted and, you know, thrown into the afterlife. I'm not a hellbender. I haven't had a stroke, but I don't have a parent who's had dementia. These are just things that they're stories we want to tell. And so since we are a family, we step into those roles. But the story is always our priority. And if we're comfortable, yeah, it's just an ambient, lucky residual fact that we actually are family.
It's like the glow around it that happens. So you were just talking about the films. I mean, you guys are dealing with some really interesting subjects. You know, the afterlife, dementia, gender fluidity, gender identity, murder, and the situations are really complex, and they can be really gritty and brutal, and still quite beautiful because of the sort of cinematography and then that you guys create in these worlds. And your kids are a part of the process. So how do you explain these concepts? And they were young kids when they started. I mean, they're now obviously going off to college, but when they started, you know, it was interesting watching Zelda be a little girl in some of these films. And how did you and John navigate that, explaining these concepts to them that they were working in, protecting them, and then your producers? So there's still very real demands that things need to be hit, because these things are not free to make. So how did you guys navigate that with them in terms of the parents?
It's such a good question. And no one out of 11, 12 years of making films together, no one has ever asked that question. Our kids were 6 and 11 when we started in 2010. And I don't want to say other families don't do this too. So I don't want to call us atypical, but we're very open with our kids. We're protective. In a way, you can be protective of your kids by also being extremely open with them. There's something to be said about not concealing the things you want to protect them from. So we're very vocal. If there's something in a film that we think they were too young for, we certainly wouldn't shoot with them around. For instance, if there's in Rumble Strips, when they were really young, the end of the film, I have a rifle. Of course, we didn't shoot that when they were around. And there are magical tricks you can do in film so that it can seem like someone's there, but of course they're not. But I would say most of the time we're transparent. We're very we don't have many secrets. We're comfortable with our kids, telling them about things that we're afraid of, for us or for them. And I think they're comfortable coming to us with the same fears and worries and issues. So over the years, we just, people, some people think that it's bizarre that our kids even call us by our names. It just shows us, it just shows you what kind of family we are. We're very close. We don't really, we don't care for definitions. Like our kids can call us Toby and John if they want to. We trust them enough to know, hey, I want to call my kids what my neighbor calls my mom. And so that's just who we are. We've just been very open about what we're shooting, why we're shooting it. And if there was something we didn't think they could understand, we didn't shoot around them. Now they're 17 and 20. Lulu's almost 23. Zelda's almost 18. So now Zelda's co-director and co-writer. Now she comes to us with some pretty gritty ideas. But it's evolved over the years, how comfortable we are explaining what we're doing. But I would say from the get-go, we were pretty comfortable with everything.
Let's talk about that, because at one point, I remember we had dinner in Miami on the beach, and you and John had made the decision that you were going to homeschool Zelda and Lulu, and you were in an RV. I remember this. And you were driving, I think you went through every state in the union, and you were scouting locations, you were shooting, you were educating your children. I mean, before COVID, no one could even imagine that. So at that point, you were being quite revolutionary. What was that decision process like? And what did you and John learn from that?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. And, it's funny. We did that 10 years later. There's something going on with the number 10 today. We did that again, shooting Hellbender. We also got another RV, and we traveled to shoot a lot of Hellbender as well. Because the first time around in 2010 and 11, we learned the ropes of making a film on that trip. Not only the kids who were 6 and 11, but John and I, who were in our early 40s, we were learning too. So we were learning right next to each other, which is a beautiful thing to do with your family. And so we learned together that you can create and you can live in tandem, which is a really neat notion. I highly recommend everyone try it. And we also learned a lot about America this time around too. This time we were traveling during the pandemic. We were contained in a trailer. So it wasn't so unlike living in a house, but and going to the grocery store when you needed to. But the same thing from the 10 years ago to this last year, you learn so much about America. Maybe you feel the same way with all the traveling you do. You learn so much about different cultures and different countries by breathing in them, talking to the people, and realizing that there's a lot that divides us, but there's also an incredibly rich world of what connects us. And I am a bit of an optimist. So when you travel around, you realize we all love our kids, or we love our partners, or we love being alone, or we're lonely, or we want people to be nice to us when we're in line at the grocery store. And we want, there's so much that binds us. It's easy to get caught in what separates us. But when we're traveling around and we're visitors in places that are not ours, you really learn, I think, that there's a grace to sharing space and sharing the resources around us. So for me, it's a humbling experience when you travel around the country, besides the fact that this country is so beautiful. There's so much to see. And we all live in it, and we share, we wake up to the same sunrise and go to bed after the same sunsets. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I like to say, I think it's important for people to travel, because you have to breathe new air. You just said that it's really important to breathe new air. It keeps you from becoming stale.
Yeah.
What and I know they're not here, but what was the perspective of the girls as they were on these major journeys throughout the country? What was their perspective on that?
You know what? I'm pretty sure they would say they've loved it. Something that's neat is when little kids are traveling around, especially staying in RV parks, they're around a lot of older people. And there's something really wonderful about spending time in an intergenerational atmosphere. I think it's great when kids can be sitting in a pool with octogenarians from Florida or Minnesota. There's so much that they learn from them. I'm sure there's stuff that the octogenarians learn from the 10-year-old. Yeah, I think they've had fun. I think they appreciate that they've seen lots of things. Often they can look at a picture or a TV show or a movie and say, "Hey, I think those are the Tetons," or "Hey, that looks like the Northwest Coast." And remember when we ate crickets in Texas? Or it's a gift that for us that we've been able to do it together, and it's wonderful that they've been gung ho from the get go. And I think it's a gift for them.
And I feel like you were able to really balance that. I know it's not a traditional way that kids tend to be raised, right? But I still feel like you gave them those elements. I mean, I know Zelda is quite the soccer player, and she's played on teams here in Topanga Canyon, and I know that was a really important part of her life. So you were really able to like balance this really expansive life experience with the sort of, the day-to-day beauty of the mundane that kids need also in order to be successful and well-rounded.
So thank you. I think that we've reached this beautiful symbiosis where we're able to live where we create art, and we're able to create art where we live, whether it's at home in our backyard or whether we're on the road. It's something that is going to linger beyond the films that we've made. I like to think of our memories as negatives. How a film has a negative, and it's sort of like we have the film that we project onto a screen or through digital, magic. But then we have the negatives that linger in our hearts forever. How sometimes when you're looking through an old album and you see those little negatives and you have to look close at them, and it's like, oh yeah, I think that's when I was at the beach with my mom and dad and my brother when we were 7, and we got stung by jellyfish. You remember those things, and that's what the memories are for us. They're these kind of ghostly memory negatives that just live within us. I feel very grateful for that.
Where did that impetus come from? Was your mom like that with you and your brother?
It's such a great question. No, my mom was, my mom and dad were not, they wouldn't do art with them, but my mom was a wonderful storyteller. So my mom, I think I'd have to say, I was influenced by my mom for the sheer joy she had from telling stories and telling memories, always through rose-colored glasses. My mom, but she always had rose-colored glasses. My dad worked very, very, very hard. He, we would see him at dinners, and on vacations, it was fun because we got to hang with my dad. I would say he loved my becoming an actress because it made him feel like he was in touch with something creative. I think his life was very structured and not creative. You can find creativity in everything. He ran a clothing business, so there's something creative about picking out clothes and imagining what your buyers will want. But no, I think a lot of it had to do with just being with John, who's also an extremely artistic, creative person. When we got together, and with John's missing the gene that says no, he doesn't have the gene that says no, that's a good combination for getting on the road and making a film just because you want to.
I want to unpack so much here, but your husband, John, is quite the man. He was a very successful model in New York. He started a band called Banana Fish. Do you remember that back in the day when he would perform at all those clubs and CBGBs in New York back in the day? And I think, okay, so I'm going to talk about John for a minute. So I'm watching I'm watching, it's so beautifully shot, this movie. So The Deeper You Dig, oh, so beautifully shot. And I think the movie works, and every man listening will relate to this because John is so attractive. And I'm really mad at him because I'm like, John is older than I am. He still looks the exact same that he did when we were in our 20s living in New York. I was so mad at him. I'm like, how do you still look like that? I mean, talk about an energy on the planet that is your husband.
Yeah, John is he is good looking, but it's funny, that is the least interesting thing about him. I mean, he's just kind of a wild thing. He really doesn't have the gene that says he can't do something. If he has something in his craw, he's going to do it. And that's a good partner to have when you're a thinker like me, because between my overthinking everything and his impulsiveness, that's a good recipe for getting something done. And he's a great painter. He's a good carpenter. He's a really talented musician. He's also a really good actor. He didn't grow up acting, but he's so good at it. Yeah, he is. I honestly, I don't want to come across as cocky or anything, but I am one lucky woman. And he's a phenomenal dad and partner.
I love those. I love those videos that you guys shoot. Like they're like, you kind of like distill down your movies into these really beautiful music videos that you guys write the music, Zelda performs in, she's playing the drums, you're singing. It's like this beautiful expression of this creative impulse that all four of you share.
It's so much fun. Let me tell you what a typical night for us is like, Patrick. So last night, Zelda was doing homework and John said, "Hey, you want to sing?" So I said, "Sure." So we had a great dinner. Then we went upstairs and he showed me 3 new songs he's working on. And then he said, "So let's, why don't you lay some vocals down on this part and this part and that part and give me a harmony here." It is so much fun. I mean, some people have game night. We make music and movies. It is just a ball. And we did it, and it's wonderful. I never knew I'd be in a band, at 52. And it's a beautiful, it's a gift. And I like to think that when you have a gift, you're gonna use it and celebrate it. And we try to every day of our lives.
I want to go back to your mom for a minute. There's a beautiful moment, and it's a hilarious moment in the movie actually, when you guys are breaking out the dad from the care facility, and I'm not gonna cry. I might cry because it really touched my heart to see that. But you got to waltz with your mother in that movie, and it's just for such a brief. I'm sure in the shooting of it, it's probably much more expansive than it is in the movie, but it took my breath away when I saw that. And I literally broke down in tears because at that point in the movie, there's so much happening, but I literally broke down in tears when I saw that, just knowing who the 2 people are in real life, and that moment that you got to share with her on the screen. She's no longer with us. So I think I just thought it was very beautiful. I wanted to remark that to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's gonna make me misty. Yeah, my wonderful, beautiful mother. It was so much fun working with her on that film and in The Deeper You Dig too. She just was a pleasure. My mom directed a lot of plays when she was a teacher in her 20s and 30s, and she directed plays, but she'd never acted. And I think she enjoyed it so much. And having that experience with her and being able to put that film on and watch her is, wow. I mean, talk about it's sort of a living photo album. And then again, the memory of doing it with her is just burned so crisply in my heart. It's fun. We cast a lot of people we know. If they're the right person for the job, we cast them, because it's not just the product, it's not just the end result of the films we make. We really do making them is equally important, and casting people we love and who are right for the role, but people we love and who can work in our wild, wily ways, crazy ways, is equally as important.
What does that mean for you to own your own words and your own content and create the vision? Because so much of acting is not owning that. You know, it's embodying that. It's taking someone else's vision and then having to exist within that framework. What is that like for you?
You know, there's something wonderful about sharing the authorship. Um, Traditionally, films, I mean, films are pretty much all collaborations. I think we're just a minor anomaly because we're a family, but there's something about sharing the authorship of it that's phenomenal, because we support each other in places where one lacks, the other one picks up. We succeed and fail together. We learn together, and there's something about having your vision out there, but that you each create. It's funny, we're individuals, but we really are a team when it comes to how we make our films. And that is just, it's just really, really cool. I don't know how to compare it to anything, because it is this strange crossover between living. It's sort of like, you know how when you go on vacation, families go on vacation, and they have those memories. We've just kind of turned our art into a vacation, and our vacation into an art. We really have, when you boil it down to basics. And it feels amazing. I feel very lucky to have done this over 6 or 7 features now, and maybe a short thrown in there. And there's something to be said too about being a woman my age. I'm 52, and creating roles that I want to see out there. I tend not to play very glamorous roles. In fact, the rawer my character can be, the better. You know, I'm not your typical very skinny, glamorous actor. Nothing, no judgment there. But I kind of love playing very real looking people. And that's something I've been able to do that I'm very proud of putting out there, is women like mine, mothers, you know, people who, or just humans in general. Humans struggle. It's hard to be a human, whether you're a kid, an adult, a parent, or even a hellbender, which is a supernatural creature. Life is hard, whether you're a human or a hellbender. And so there's something that feels very good about writing the kind of roles that we're writing, and showcasing the kind of universal struggles that exist in the world. And let me say real fast, Patrick, you know, you and I come from an acting world, but there's something to be said about working with so many great directors and then being able to direct is a wonderful just turn of events. I can think of it. I can call together all the wonderful things I got from the great directors I worked with in theater and film and television. And now as a director, I can like boil those down until I find my own little diamond that comes out of it, you know? And that's a wonderful gift as well.
You said something really interesting now about the sort of physical demands that are placed a lot more on women. But I felt it a lot when I was acting, to look a certain way and be a certain type of physical body type. And for we're going to go back. We're going to go way back. But for many years, you played the role of soap star. You were Amanda Spalding on America's most iconic daytime soap, The Guiding Light. And we know that soaps require a very specific type of physical embodiment for the people. And they really did back in the day. I feel now the paintbrush is a bit more broad. How did you navigate that? Because as you said, you're a different type than what we would have traditionally seen in a soap opera. How did you navigate that for yourself and not just completely break down under that pressure?
It was hard. I think my first year when I was on the soap, I had gained weight from the time I had been cast and started with the show. And they took me aside and they said, we want, you know, you need to lose weight. And I felt like my job was really, you know, hanging in the balance. And that was very humbling. It was hard. I wanted that acting job, and I did lose that weight. And then I think there were times over the years that I really continued to struggle with the idea that I needed to be a certain kind of person to get work, and that's not cool. Even thinking about it kind of riles me up. I resent that. I understand that there are certain demands placed on certain characters that need to be played and need a certain way, you need to look a certain way. And if you need to be fit, literally, if you're doing something, a very athletic role, I understand that. But I think I really struggled with my identity as an actress for several years. And even when I got into voiceovers, I kind of shunned, I was almost happy if I didn't have a lot of acting work, because I thought, oh, I just don't have to worry about what I'm eating, or when I go on audition, if my pants look tight. I mean, that's something that I didn't appreciate. And when I started making my own films, going back to what I said before, I kind of let that go. And I thought, but I had the reins now. I had control of the kind of women I wanted to cast, and the women I wanted to play. And so I definitely felt like I was in a position where I could cast women who did just look like women. I mean, I say that it doesn't mean that people who aren't beautiful and super svelte aren't women. They're wonderful. But I felt like it wasn't until I was creating my own roles for women that I really let go of the idea that I or other women had to look a certain way. And that's why I think that it's important to have, I'm not saying that male directors are only going to cast super skinny women, but I think it's important to have a collage of directors out there, including a lot of people who identify as female. And I think you're going to have a greater diversity of roles that come out. And I'm like that I and Zelda are two of those people.
I remember that time when we were living in New York, and that was happening with the show. I also remember it's funny because I think you, at that point, you were coming into people's lives every day in their homes, and Amanda wasn't always doing very nice things at that point in the show. But talk about the sense of ownership that people felt towards you because you were in their lives every day. And I think it's very unique, particularly in the daytime soap world, because you were literally in people's homes every day. And it was interesting. I remember when we went to the hospital because I was having my appendix out and you were with me. And do you remember that the nurses kept coming in, and I was like, what are they doing? Like, why do they keep coming in here? And of course, I don't think of you in that regard. And then finally, one of the nurses came in. So a little background. I was having major stomach issues, and I thought something's wrong. I'm having something wrong. I'll go to the doctor. I'm like, no. Your stomach is fine. You're having your appendix is about to go. So as I was going to the hospital, I called Toby to come to the hospital with me because I was like, I should have a friend here just in case. So we hop in a cab and go up to New York Presbyterian, and we're in the emergency room. And they had put us off to the side, one of those rooms with curtains or whatnot. And then I was like, why are all these nurses coming in here all the time? And finally, one of them comes in and says, excuse me, are you Amanda Spalding? And I was like, Jesus. Can a man have an appendectomy right now?
And okay, I want him in a private room, stat. Yes, that was really crazy. That was fun. It's fun. Again, I have to go back to things. It's fun being an actor, and being on a soap, especially a juicy role like Amanda Spalding, was really fun. I would be on the soap on the subway sometimes, and people would get really upset with me because they could only saw me as Amanda. They would say, "You leave that Ross alone. He's with Blake." And he's not yours. And okay, I promise I'll leave him alone, except for when the script tells me I'm not going to. It was really fun. Being on a soap opera is really being part of a family. And the guiding light folks, the cast and the crew were just delights. I mean, wow. Sometimes I feel like I don't know. I want to say I don't necessarily believe in another life, afterlife, but I sometimes feel like I must have done something right in another life to have gotten a gig like that. It was just beautiful.
I mean, yeah, you just said something that I love this theme of family that keeps recurring through what you talk about, and that sense of family and belonging that's important to you in your work.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. In our newest film, too, Hellbender, which is a supernatural horror film, it's actually, do you know what the Ouroboros is? It's the,
Hmm.
you know, the snake that eats its tail, and it's just basically a sign of eternity and nature and consumption. And I'm enamored of that image, the Ouroboros, everything kind of consuming itself and regeneration and cycles. And yeah, families are like that. And if you're lucky, um, you get to have many different cycles within the life of one family, the things you do, the people you lose, but then the people you gain. um, yeah, family is really important.
And the people who come back, right?
Yeah.
So we have for Wonderworld Productions, you have Hellbender coming out. You have Lulu, who is on a world tour essentially right now, and Zelda's getting ready for college. What is the next incarnation for Wonderworld Productions? Where do we go from here?
Ah, well, yeah, we just had a world premiere for Hellbender at Fantasia Film Festival in Montreal. It went super well, and it's already been picked up by Shudder, which is a really cool platform, kind of like Netflix, but for genre films. But this would be a Shudder classic, a Shudder original film, because they're going to distribute it as well. And Yellow Veil Pictures was the group that got us, guided us towards Shutter. So we're with a really wonderful team of people who are navigating and cultivating the film's life after its premieres. We go to Texas next, to Austin for its US premiere at Fantastic Fest, which is wonderful. It's going to be at some festivals in Europe, which are really cool. And then it'll be released in early 2002. But in the meantime, we are, of course, already conjuring up our next film, also within this supernatural horror genre, because that, that scene is so wonderful. Our first four films were dramas, but the horror scene, that community is just, there's nothing like it. There's a loyalty and an acceptance, and an openness there. And it's just rich for imagination. And behind horror, to me, the best horror is steeped in love and fears we have just because we're humans, and we have a lot of, you know, life is precarious. So we're going to stick with that genre, and we're already coming up with our newest, which is going to be a 1930s piece about a traveling family on the dying vaudeville circuit. Yes.
Toby. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna leave it there. Toby, I want to thank you so much for your time today and your willingness to share your voice and wisdom with us. I'm beyond grateful for you.
Patrick, I'm beyond grateful to you and your team. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you very, very much.
And guys, remember to go to wonderwheelproductions.com to check out information on their company. You can watch their films there as well. And to those of you who are watching and listening, remember, we all have a voice. Use yours wisely. Thank you.